Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV here, and today I am bringing you all my ban list prediction for the upcoming April/May 2023 ban list. Tom showed you all his prediction list a couple of days ago, and while there are some interesting things that he makes notes of, my approach is going to be a little bit different. I think that the list is going to be a bit simpler, and aside from Kashtira, I think that the diversity of decks we're seeing in the current format is actually really healthy for the game, and I think that that's something that we will see even after this ban list. That being said, my hits are fairly minimal, and I actually have a ton of cards that are coming off of the list as well. Let's get started. So the first hit I have here is one that I think everyone has on their prediction list, and it's pretty much something that everyone wants banned. It's number 89, Diablosis the Mind Hacker. Honestly, I don't think there's much to say about this card that hasn't been said already. Number 89 has become a really degenerate card when played in the Kashtira strategy. The big thing is that it enables the 5-zone lock, which can completely shut down half of the entire board and make it really impossible to play your way through. Now, at the same time, this card really restricts deck building by peeking at your opponent's extra deck and ripping a card from out of there. Not only do you automatically get to find out what your opponent is playing so that you can build your board accordingly, but you also force players to run multiples of important extra deck monsters just to be able to play the game, which I think is really unhealthy. So yeah, I think that if there was anything to be hit out of Kashtira for sure, it's number 89 getting banned, and honestly, I don't think anyone would really miss it. Okay, so the other ban I have here is Branded Expulsion, and honestly I think this one is a bit questionable. I could potentially see this not getting hit. The thing that makes me think it won't get touched is the lack of performance from Branded. The deck hasn't been too crazy over the last little while. However, with other decks getting hit on this list, I think we'd have to hit Branded in some way in order to keep it at the same power level as other decks and stop it from taking over the format. Expulsion is the pretty obvious hit to stop the deck from being broken without taking away any of its key plays. They're not going to hit Branded Fusion, right, with it getting an ultimate rare printing in the next OTS tournament pack, and I think that hitting Branded Expulsion is a lot like hitting Crystron Halki Fibrax. Rather than hitting all of the cards that make Branded Expulsion broken, like the Gimmick Puppet Nightmare, Ra's Disciple, you can just hit Expulsion and then those cards aren't really a problem anymore. So yeah, I think that going into next format, Branded is still going to be a top tier strategy, but we should see Expulsion banned to stop the deck from pulling off anything that's too over the top. Alright, onto the limited section, and the first one I have is one that I think is the most broken card in the whole Kashtira deck. It's Kashtira Birth. Birth has 3 effects and all of them are really strong. It special summons a Kashtira from your banished pile or graveyard. Really free value because especially in like a mid game or a simplified game state, you get to bring out this huge body for free that can usually pull off another search, and you can just do it turn after turn. It allows you to normal summon without tributing, which is also really good. One of the ways that players deal with Kashtira is giving them a monster, which is something that Plunder Patrol, for example, does, giving them a token. Birth gives them a way to somewhat play around that by still getting a strong Kashtira monster on the field. They're so big that they can just bully their way through your board. And the last thing is that it banishes your opponent's spells, which is naturally a really strong counter to Runic, but could also be useful against something like Branded. Now, usually it's the first 2 effects that are really big, but having access to 3 copies of this card is just a bit too much, especially when sometimes, like, you'll try to impermanence the Unicorn to stop their combo from going through, and they just happen to have already hard drawn the Birth. They have it in hand so that they can full combo anyways. I just think that limiting Birth is really necessary because it provides too much safety. It provides these 3 really amazing powerful effects, and Kashtira needs to see some hits in addition to number 89 being banned to stop it from continuing to rule over the format. One last Kashtira hit, and I know that Tom had this card semi-limited, but I do actually think that they're going to limit it as well. It is Kashtira Unicorn. So I really don't think that just hitting Birth is enough. If you leave Unicorn at 3, you're basically still playing 4 copies of Birth since you have 3 ways to search it, and then you can still search that with Fenrir or Raitsoth. So by only limiting Birth, Kashtira players will probably still expect to be able to dig for it every single game quite consistently. However, by limiting Unicorn as well, this whole thing becomes much harder. Yes, you can use Fenrir or Raitsoth to search for Unicorn, but the odds of them just having that Birth in hand where they have free access to their combo is just a lot lower now, so the chances of you disrupting them with an impermanence or something at the right time is a lot more likely. I think that Unicorn is the most useful of the Kashtira monsters in the pure deck, searching for either Birth or Kashtira Theosis, so I think that it makes most sense to hit Unicorn to hit the deck's consistency and its ability to develop the board so easily. I know it is a bit early to hit Kashtira, but of all the top tier decks that we've had over the last couple of years, Kashtira is weird because it's one of the most fragile, but at the same time, when it does pop off, it's one of the least fun decks to play against because a lot of the time it just completely shuts your opponent off from being able to play the game entirely. I think that we leave Fenrir untouched. It just got an ultimate rare printing in an OTS tournament pack, and it's still going to be splashable. I could see them hitting it down the road, just not right now. So on this list, I do think that we see limits to both Birth and Unicorn from the Kashtira archetype. I have one other card being hit down to 1, and that is Sprite Starter. Now on Tom's list, he had Sprite Jet going to 1, but I don't think that that's the problematic card with Sprite. Jet going to 1 just feels like it doesn't really do anything to the deck. A lot of the times you only need the 1 copy. Rather, I think that hitting Starter is the correct move. The Sprite monsters themselves aren't too crazy. Yes, they search, and yes, they can special summon themselves out of the hand for free, but you have to have that level 2 body already on the board. Sprite Starter basically just says, no, screw that. I'm going to special summon whatever Sprite monster I want anyways and get its effect live, and that's also going to turn on the effects of all the Sprite monsters I have in my hand to special summon themselves out. Now that being said, I do see Starter as a consistency hit. The deck is able to do all of the same combos and plays as before, it's just going to be a lot less consistent at doing it now because you can't special summon that level 2 body out for free as easily. Sure, the deck could play like E-Telly for Gamma and summon the sprites out then, but you're not proccing a sprite effect with the body that you're summoning out, and the Gammas also require you to potentially run dead cards. I do think that Sprite is still a really scary deck that can do some crazy things, even with the banning of Elf, which the deck proved by winning one of the YCSs on the 250th YCS weekend. Besides, hitting Starter is also sort of an indirect hit to Jet, since you're just giving Jet 2 less search targets. Also, you can't flip Starter during your opponent's turn anymore, or at least you probably wouldn't, which is big because you're stopping them from getting out that negate or getting that search during your opponent's turn and then playing another copy and doing it again during their own turn as well. So yeah, for me, I think that Sprite Starter is the clear hit as a card that opens up the game for the deck a little bit too much. Okay, so we're going on to a few cards that I'm pulling off the list, and for some of the more self-explanatory ones, I'm just going to kind of breeze right through them. Blaster, I think, is one of the self-explanatory ones. It was moved from banned to limited in the OCG and on Master Duel, and it hasn't done anything in either of those two formats. With the new Fire-based Legendary Duelist set coming out later this year, this should help out a couple of those strategies potentially, but really I don't think Blaster is going to do anything game-breaking at all. So yeah, I do feel like this is more of a formality, but we should expect to see Blaster peeled off the list back to limited status this time around. Another one that was seen in the OCG, Glow Up Bulb is likely okay to be unbanned now because of the banning of Halki Vibrax. I don't think there's too much that can be done with Glow Up Bulb now, especially since it is a level 1 tuner and we have cards like Ringo Worm coming out to help facilitate synchro plays. In fact, we move into a format that's going to be a bit more synchro heavy, and Glow Up Bulb is probably going to be a neat little tech that people are going to want to play around with. I highly doubt, though, that the card does anything too noteworthy, especially with the card being at 1, and it being something that's relatively difficult to now just pull out of the deck for free, so I'm expecting Glow Up Bulb to peel off the list this format to 1, and not make much of an impact on the format either. So this is the one last limited card that I think people have kind of forgotten about. It's Simorgh, Bird of Sovereignty. I feel like the entire reason that the card was on the ban list in the first place was because of the Wind Barrier statue, which is now banned, so I don't think that this is a problematic card anymore. I guess that some players might be afraid of Tri-Brigade Lyrilusk summoning out like an Apex Avian for free, but that's just another negate and that's not really too scary or difficult to deal with. Besides, Lyrilusk hasn't done anything even with Recital Starling going to 2, so I think that with the problematic Floodgate in Barrier Statue of the Stormwinds going away, it is reasonable to give the birds back a toy to help build their end boards. Okay, so on to the semi-limits, and I only have one that's a hit, and that is Runic Tip. So I do think that the Runic engine needs to be addressed in some shape or form. The engine itself is really powerful and incredibly disruptive. However, with the Runic cards expected to be reprinted in the 2023 Megatons, I don't think we see too crazy of a hit on the deck until then. And also, it's really weird to hit the deck without killing it off entirely. I've seen people talk about semi-limiting Fountain, which just seems weird because a lot of people only play 2 Fountain in the first place. Hitting the negate or the pops sounds a little bit weird, and the extra deck monsters aren't all that crazy, so I think that the only thing that really makes sense is a hit on Tip, because Tip provides 2 uses. One, it makes it so that in your opponent's turn, you can search for the perfect interruption that will disrupt their board. You don't have to use tip during your own turn. You can wait, see what deck they're playing, and search for the interruption then. But two, it gives you an additional runic spell to put into the graveyard so that you can put it back to the bottom of the deck and draw an additional card with Fountain. So that being said, Tip is clearly the card from the deck that should be hit. However the deck is going to get hit, it just feels like a question of if it should go to 1 or 2. In this case, I am leaning towards the card being semi-limited because we still have a lot of time for the runic stuff to see play before it gets reprinted, and I think that the reprints of runic cards will be a big draw for a lot of players towards the 2023 Megatins, given how splashable the engine is and how much play it has seen combined with so many other strategies. So I think that the runic engine gets a very small hit with the semi-limiting of Tip, just to hurt the engine's consistency a little bit without killing it off entirely. Okay, so a few cards going from 1 to 2, the first one being Miscellaneousaurus. I know that Misk has been on and off the ban list a lot, with Dinos being really strong a couple of years ago, and the card has been at 1 for a little while now. However, I do think that the card is going to be pulled off the list back to 2, just to entertain the new dinosaur support cards that we're getting in the upcoming side set, Wild Survivors. I don't suspect that the cards will do anything too crazy, but also dinosaurs are a very popular deck with a lot of casual players, so giving them back some tools to combine with the new cards should help to push out additional product. The next one here is Daigusto Emerald, and I really think that this is more of just a formality. I don't think Daigusto Emerald has seen any competitive play with the card going to 1, and I think it'll naturally just be moved to 2 or even 3 within the next couple of lists. One last semi-limit here, it is Sky Striker Mobilize Engage. I know that this might be a polarizing one, especially given how many players really don't like having to play against Sky Strikers with how long it was running around in the format. However, we have to remember that Engage will be getting an alternate art printing, which should be sometime later this year. We just don't know where exactly that's going to be yet, but the alternate art is out over in the OCG, so it should just be a matter of time. To me, it doesn't really make sense to release this alternate art of such an iconic card, but keep that card limited to 1, especially for a deck that probably isn't going to be able to compete with everything else the way that the game has evolved over the last couple of years. So I don't know if Engage will be to this list or next list. It kind of depends on the upcoming product releases, but I personally am expecting Engage to be moved to 2 sometime fairly soon. Alright, and then finally we have the cards going to unlimited status, and usually every time we show these cards it's more of just like a cleanup. I honestly could see more cards going to 3, but I just put a few of them up there that I think are a little bit more likely. Monkey Board's kind of interesting. I think that maybe Pendulums could do something. People are looking at Pendulum stuff because of the super heavy Samurais that are coming in Cyberstorm Access. Spellbook of Judgment hasn't done anything since going to 1 despite a lot of initial hype, and I feel like Desires isn't going to do anything either. It's not really something that anyone plays right now at 2. I don't think going to 3 is going to affect anything at all. The only one that I think might be worth paying attention to is Gazelle, and that's because we have the Salamangrate support coming in Legendary Duelist Soul Burning Volcano. I wouldn't really be surprised to see Gazelle go to 3. It's definitely not a broken card anymore in the context of today's game, so I think it can go to 3 without any issue at all. But yeah, that is it for my ban list prediction, guys. Let me know what you guys think is or is not accurate. And if you guys think it's my list or Tom's that's going to be more accurate overall, hopefully we get the new list sometime within the next week or 2 and get to see some cool shakeups. If you guys did like the video, make sure that you hit that thumbs up button, ding the notification bell to get more from Tombucks and myself. And until next time, guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.